guys. Welcome to Truth Talkin' Thursday. This is Jim. I'm Jane. We switched sides today. It's as much of a source of confusion to us as it may be to you. But this is not a bad thing. It's all good.
Change is good.
Change is good. Change is good. Which kind of brings us to what's kind of been foremost on my mind since the weekend. What do you do when changes happen? So when you have a plan, maybe I could say an itinerary, what happens if and when that changes and there are circumstances beyond your control? Just to give you a little heads up, Jim already knows this, but I went on my first riding trip. So I went on a motorcycle trip with a bunch of other people. Some of them I knew, some of them I did not. And it was a really great weekend, but I'll qualify that by saying there were several very, very unfortunate things that happened and some rather scary things that happened that changed plans for some of us in the group. We had a bike breakdown, so someone that began the trip with their bike could no longer do so. That bike had to be shipped back to Canada. And then we had a very, very serious medical emergency where a gentleman had to be airlifted. That was very scary. But again, we got through it and we continued on. I think that what really impressed me was how this group of people in particular, no one got left behind. When a crisis happened, everybody worked together and they solved that crisis. It seemed as though everyone took a little piece of the pie and they solved that little piece of it. So the gentleman that was airlifted, as an example, he was obviously on a bike. So something had to happen with his bike. You can only ride one bike at a time. So something had to happen to that bike. And there was just a whole bunch of little intricate details. His wife had to be notified, and there was many things that had to come together, and it was very heartwarming to watch that play out and to realize that those are the kind of people that I would like to have my back if something happens. So having said all that, Jim, what would you say comes to your mind first and foremost on how to deal with big changes in plans? Is there something that you do or don't do when that happens to you?
Well, I mean, you have to, first of all, I guess you have to accept the situation as it is. I mean, you can't change what's happened.
No.
You can change what's going to happen by selecting or making different decisions and all that, but I think your point's well taken in that this sounds like a really nice group to ride with, number one. Number two, they stuck together to take care of the issues and turned a potentially horrible situation into not a great situation for the people that were affected directly, certainly, but for the betterment of the whole group together. Everybody just said, well, let's roll up the sleeves and get into it and get it done. And it got done, and it was done well, it sounds like. And nobody got left behind, like you were saying. So all the people that were directly affected were taken care of. And everybody got on with the weekend, and it sounds like had a really nice time, where it could have gone south in a hurry. And it's just, that's a really nice, kind of a nice sort of metaphor in a way for the rest of the things that happen to us in our lives every day. I mean, plans don't go as they're supposed to. I mean, most of the time they sort of go most of the way, but things happen. And so I guess if we just pay attention and if we just kind of roll up the sleeves and say, okay, what do we need to do to fix this? We're going to get to where we need to be faster and in better shape, regardless of what the issue is.
Yes.
Then if we sit around and moan about it and say, oh boy, geez, I never thought, if I had thought this was going to, I never would. And so, and yet how many times do we complain because sometimes I guess we think it feels better? I don't know.
Well, there's a solution for everything. And I think what's so interesting to me is I got to witness this weekend I got to witness solutions in action. I got to witness people who took control of the situation, and sometimes a very traumatic and very upsetting situation. I got to watch them work through that as a team. I wasn't responsible for any of it. I didn't, I was the newbie to the group. I didn't know the gentleman that had to be airlifted. He seemed like such a nice man. But it's interesting to me how when I apply that to my life, usually I'm the one that has to be in control. Mm-hmm. So this was a great learning experience for me, I feel, how to calmly go forward. Yes, things are going to happen. Like you said, that's just life. Mm-hmm. Stuff happens.
Yes. And
you can either run away from it, or you can, as Jim said, roll up your sleeves and say, okay, so how do we solve this problem? Because there is a solution always, always.
I think sometimes, too, sometimes it's just a matter of understanding what your role is in the solution. Sometimes you don't play a role. Your role is to not have a role, kind of thing, you know?
Or even
and just, I mean, if you get too many hands in the pot, you know, the stew gets burned sometimes, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes you just got to say, okay, you know, like, I'm not going to horn my way in here and create an issue that, you know, I think it should be done this way when other folks are saying, you know, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. Sometimes our greatest role is to step back and not have an active role in things, and we need to understand when that happens.
Yeah. Or maybe it's simply to support those that are taking the active role in it. Mm-hmm. Like for me, I think all I could really do is just listen to the expressions of those that needed to talk at that time, mm-hmm. and their fear, talk it out, and their worry, their concern, and you know, give the hug or the pat on the back, or ask them, are you okay? Or
just support.
There was really nothing for me to do.
Right.
But I think that all of those things work together, really. Mm-hmm. Like it's, as you just said, sometimes there is nothing to do. And even sometimes when you're in control and responsible, mm-hmm. there's nothing that you can do.
Nothing more I can do.
Yeah, all you can do is just sit back and say, well, yes, this is unfortunate. So I have 2 options or 3 options. Yeah.
And it's just, sometimes it's just as simple as that. We really tend to overcomplicate problems that we see. So I mean, if the problem seems to be bigger than anything and anyone at the moment, you know, it's the solution to that issue doesn't necessarily mean that it has to also be bigger than anything at the moment. Sometimes the very best solutions are the very simplest solutions. Straightforward, A to B, get it done.
Exactly. Couldn't have said it any better. I think that's it in a nutshell. Exactly what you just said. Without overthinking, solutions can be found.
Yeah.
It's all right there. It's your instinct. You just have to listen.
Basically. That's it.
So have a great week, everybody.
Thanks for stopping by.